Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I didn't bring any data points, but tried to entertain you with how the journey felt from the inside. Really from the inside. I will put a lot of personal stuff in there. Hope that's not going to bore you. And let's get it started. So thank you for the introduction. And I want to introduce the best company in the world. If you want to do Adobe Marketing Cloud, they are great. And I had the pleasure to you're always a founder if you've co-founded something, to be a co-founder of that company, and I had the pleasure to have been the CEO. We started in 2012 with roughly 15 people. We started in 3 countries with 15 people, Switzerland, Germany, and Spain. And from there, we took it and grew the company to more than 250 people last year. And I think now you are more than 380, right. So this is Dan. He's still with Netcentric. And he can also give you more details afterwards. Okay, so what's so special about that? Okay, it was quite successful, or it is quite successful. And it was great fun when we started, because it was a startup, and you all know that feeling. You can decide things, you can see how things grow, and you're proud. And then you realize maybe we need some sort of a stable structure or something. And that's usually when you switch from the let's work mindset to the let's manage mindset. And I have to say, my personal journey took me from science in the 90s to IT services. I spent 3 years at IBM. Then I had the pleasure to be part of a rather big startup. And then I was in another IT consulting corporate company. So I learned a bit about traditional management, but my heart is where a startup lives. Nevertheless, when you have a challenge, you usually look into your toolbox, and what do you find when you have some sort of traditional management education? Well, let's build a hierarchy. And that's what we did. We were smart enough, or we thought we were smart enough, not to call it a management structure, but we rather said we need team leads leading teams, and thought that would make the step from doing projects to running teams a bit easier. Fortunately, most of our people that we asked, do you want to become a team lead, didn't like the idea that much. And so what do you do in such a case? You think, and then you try to explain it in another way and hope that people understand. No, it didn't work. It didn't work. We continued to grow. We were like 80 people, 90 people. And life in the leadership team got very tiring, because a lot of things simply end up, a lot of operational things end up over there. And then we found we need something else. And we stumbled across Holacracy and thought, oh, circles looks good. We looked at the videos and read things, and it was not very helpful back in these days. And then we said, okay, let's call 3 coaches and talk to them. And we did that and learned a lot in these calls. And then we invited Diederik to come to Zurich. And we did one day or 2 days of workshop. We were, of course, discussing the whole stuff beforehand. And after that day, the leadership team, 7 or 8 of us, well, we spent the night discussing that, and then we decided, okay, let's try that. That seems to be safe enough to try. And our expectation was that Holacracy, this is the original slide, that it would help us to preserve this startup spirit. We really like the idea that you can do things and change it again, and everybody can decide, sort of. We are transparent, and we are quick and hopefully smart decision making. Continue to try things out was very important for us because as a startup, you must try out things. There's no safety. And as a startup, that's the only chance to survive. We were quite ambitious in terms of growth. Therefore, we wanted to have a system that would be scalable. And Holacracy seemed to fit the bill. Fun was very important for all, not just on the top. And what I think attracted some of us was that it seems to be a bit of a crazy idea, so we didn't want to become a normal company. So that was what we set out. And so was that a smart decision to do it like that? Because our approach was, yeah, let's do it. And we started by taking the sort of pyramid and transformed the one level to a GCC and then took it from there. Well, the way I phrased the question implies that I think maybe that was a bit too ambitious. The other thing we did, we looked at ClassFrog, and oh great, we are software engineers basically. So let's do this and this and this, and suddenly we had our organization built. Then Diederik said you shouldn't do that. Okay, we removed that, but we were used to this design thing. We thought we had understood the system. In system, I don't mean the tool, but really the practice, as we should probably better say, after 3 or 4 months, and felt that now we are ready to go on our own. And that was, I think, we overestimated our understanding of Holacracy. And especially we underestimated what change or transformation on that level means, especially for you as a person. Nevertheless, I think it is good not to think too long about the decision. Try it out. Yeah? Do an experiment or pilot and mark it as such. And when you think about a pilot, I think it's a good idea if suppose you have a pyramid, don't take one level only, but go across levels so that real work gets done. So that you see how it feels for people in the pyramid and on the lower levels that they are allowed to do things. So they have to speed up to learn. So they have to leave their comfort zone, speed up. And how does it feel when people on the top have to slow down to learn? That's quite interesting how that feels. And it's quite interesting to open the space to discuss that. What does this change do with you? And I can tell you, so as I was the CEO, and I always thought that I was a good manager, or I tried to be a good manager, so open up space, delegate things, and so on and so on. But I remember the first governance meeting that we had, I had this brilliant idea for a new governance proposal, and it got objected, and the objection was valid. That was terrible. Because I felt, no, I was right, actually. It was something about the bank account, and I'm sure I was right. Anyway, I got objected, and that is, and the system let me alone with this experience. I think I hated the thing for 2 weeks. The same thing happens when you have an objection and you're sure that your objection is a good idea and your objection is not valid. Also not very nice. But on the other hand, there are also things when you understand how it helps you. In a traditional system, you have a lot of responsibility. If you're somewhere in the senior management, on the top of a pyramid, so everything that is not sorted ends up with you. That's the one thing. And then if you if you have this ambition to be a good manager, then you want to feel everybody so that they feel good and perform well. So you always look for the best solution. And it's so amazing when you let go of that. For example, I can remember one of the governance proposals. So I learned that if you want to make a governance proposal, small steps, not perfect, small steps. Even though you might have been the most senior manager in the world, do small steps. Because other people have different views, very important. But it's so, it creates so much free time, space for you. If you do only one small proposal, you listen to the reaction, and some people have great ideas, but if you just let them go, it doesn't solve my attention. I'm a nice guy, and usually I would take your attention with my attention, but I will save my time, my lifetime, and not take care of your attention. That's a wonderful feeling. And I think it's important that you develop this self-reflection, that you notice these things. And in a good pilot or in a good rollout, I would encourage that the leadership team sets time aside to find these bright spots where things actually make your life better. Because then you can embrace holacracy to its fullest. So I think what I want to share is find the rollout that fits your challenge. I think to introduce holacracy, just to introduce holacracy, is not what you should do. Start with what's the business challenge, and how does holacracy relate to that? Because then you can start to measure that as well, and that's good. So in our case, we sort of readjusted our rollout later when we noticed that things weren't going that well. And we introduced an ambassador role, which is basically a coach helping other people to learn the system and to use the system. Because after a couple of months, as I said, we thought we had understood the system, and wasn't the case. But we forgot about onboarding new people, and we hired 5 to 10 people per month. So after 6 months, 9 months, this was a gap, which was not useful. Then we introduced an ambassador role, doing trainings and doing onboardings, which made things much better. And what we didn't do was hire an external or use an external view. So this was all internal in our case. I really recommend to use an external view as well. It's worth the time and the effort, because it will make you better. Another thing I learned, and I would do differently next time, is, as I said, we started with our GCC and then relied on that everything in the middle will sort out somehow. There are things which are so critical or crucial for your employees or your customers that you should offer a default or template for. What do I mean by that? If you introduce a new system, people will feel some sort of insecurity. And they will ask, who is going to decide on my salary? They will ask, what about my career path? What about these things? And it's great to tell people you're allowed to do things now, and you're allowed to decide on these things, but it's better to have a default, I think, a default solution for that. For example, our idea was that with the step into a responsive organization, people should show more self-management ability, meaning, for example, their personal development plan is not owned by the company anymore, but by every person, which is a great idea in theory, but not everybody is ready in your company. And therefore, I would recommend in such a case to offer a template personal development plan and show everybody that they are allowed to change that. Otherwise, the personal development plan will stay empty in at least 30% of the cases. And that's, to me, a very important learning. Be realistic about willingness and ability to change. We all tend to be very ambitious, and sometimes we overestimate our ability to change. And that can be because of time. Yeah? We have many priorities. That can be because of knowledge and skills. So that's very, very important to me to mention that, because it also includes you, or in my case, me. I absolutely overestimated my ability and willingness to change, even though I felt that I did understand the theory of Holacracy pretty well. It's the final trust in the system takes time. Takes time, and I would be very serious about that, because if it takes time for you, it will take time for your employees as well. And it feels like you're torn between it's a great idea and I don't want to let go. Because one thing is the system, the other thing is it really true that everybody in this circle adheres to the rules in the same way I do? And it's also a trust thing. And if you have a history of traditional management, that is an issue. Yeah. Well, now where did it take us? Netcentric, it's continued to grow. It's the leading provider for the Adobe Marketing Cloud platform in Europe, and still running on Holacracy. Me personally has taken a completely different turn than I expected, because after 3 years working with Holacracy and responsive systems, there was quite a lot of interest of other companies in talking to us, and I enjoyed talking to them and helping them to become responsive in certain ways. And when Netcentric decided on the strategy for the next 4 years, I was part of that circle doing that. I completely subscribed to where we heading at, where Netcentric is heading at, but I also felt this tension in coming up to the strategy circle discussions, that I actually want to do something else. And that's about purpose. 3 years ago, I thought purpose is just something like mission, vision. It's just an American word. It's like, yeah, come on. Huh? And sorry. But now it feels differently, and I'm quite happy that I have the privilege to really take the next steps now. I decided for me that my purpose is to help other companies become responsive. I did not try to change Netcentric's purpose to move in that direction, as one would have thought, or other people would have thought. And with that, it's the best solution for both purposes to be fulfilled. I left Netcentric end of last year. I found a very fair solution with my co-founders, and I'm now starting a new company out of this world together with Melanie, and we are basically going live this week. Huh? Yeah. Okay, and that's our journey. A very personal view. I hope that was okay for you. You can ask questions, or is that my role to, or is that your job? Thank you. Happy to discuss anything, and yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I have a question. You say one of the reasons you enter into Holacracy was because you want to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely Holacracy satisfy the need for autonomy of the people that work, which is it really motivates you. However, the process is not fun.
No.
At least I'd like for you to share your views about that. I mean, I know that the end result is fun,
yeah,
but not the process.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. Fun is a big thing. So for us, it was clear if we go into a traditional thing, fun will go down for a lot of the people. Yeah, the fun factor, because we would have had hired people who are not fun. Yeah, so traditional style. That's the one thing. The other thing is Holacracy it can be fun, actually. Yeah, there will be circles which are a bit energy lacking, and then there will be circles which are fun. And I'm sorry to say, it's also because of the people in there. Because process is great, but it's still interaction between human beings. That's very important, and we should look for that. There are many things which are really fun, like a tactical meeting where things get processed and you get out early is great. It is. And then you have, of course, the downside, like a governance meeting where you think that is not a very good proposal, but let's process it anyway. That's the price you have to pay, but I think it's worth it. It's worth it. And then the letting go, the trust that comes up into that defined roles bring clarity, and people know what they're doing, and you learn that you can trust the people and the system. That's then fun. And at the end of the day, to add that, it saves you time, so you can use the free time for fun.
Thanks. Next question. Yeah.
Hi. Hello. I have two questions, and the first one is on the time-related aspect of trusting the system and being able to go with it. Like, what did you do with this, or do you have any advice on how to manage this time for people or help them to trust?
I think you shorten the time if you allow for time to learn, for awareness. If you run this sort of the system or the transformation and trust that the transformation will take place, then the trust will take longer. Yeah, I cannot say it's a certain amount of months. I think it's very different for different personalities. And but certainly, if you allow space to make the learning transparent, then it will be faster.
Okay, thank you. And the second one is more or less related, but did you apply any coaching process or whatever to help the two extremes of the chain? The people, the managers that wouldn't let go, or also the team members and the employees who were now taking new responsibilities and being accountable for?
Yeah, it's so we were never a typical traditional company. So management meant something different. So therefore the gap or the threshold wasn't that high. And we hired people with a high level of self-motivation. So that helped. But at the end of the day, it was awareness, and by people who had to let go, they tried to remind themselves when this was a situation where you did this and this and this. So, but there was no structured coaching process just for that. No, I think it was more in the general sense.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have a question. I was curious how Holacracy helped you to discover your personal purpose. You mentioned something about that, but looking backwards, could you say there were some markers in that process, and how did it look like?
No, I can't see any markers, but I no definite markers. But to understand that you have several roles and that they have several response or accountabilities is something. That it's just not in your job. That's also the rest of your life. To me, Holacracy forced me to accept certain things and to see that I cannot influence everything. Yeah, it's. I used to like perfection a lot, but perfection is very hard to achieve. And with Holacracy, I learned that it's probably better use of time if you don't go for perfection all the time. So and the other thing is it safe enough to try? Yeah. So if it doesn't work, then do something else. Yeah, it's not clinging to safety that much, and I learned that in a Holacracy-driven company. Yes.
Hi, Frank.
Hi.
Thanks for sharing. It sounds like you went through kind of a real transformation. And I have one specific question about it, maybe related to what you just talked about. You talked about letting go. I'm curious, when in this whole process were you able to let go, and particularly why? Like, what shifted for you? Because this feels like it's at the heart of this whole thing.
Yeah. I think the first time when you realize that something is not working as you thought it should work, or somebody is, you're not allowed to influence things, that's painful. And you can take only so much pain. And then you should start to think about it. And then it's to me, it was just try it. Yeah, you know, the thing is, I cannot go on vacation because otherwise no bills will be paid or some rubbish like that. And in such a case, go on vacation. Everything will be fine. Just do the first step, buy a ticket for it, and then you go. And then you get back, and then you realize, oh, it works. Okay, maybe other things work as well. And I mean, we're asking for a mindset shift, and you cannot shift. Mindset shift is a complex thing, and you cannot address that with a complex solution, but you need small steps, which are behavioral changes. And yeah, I think that is, if I have to describe it, I think that's it.
Yeah. Just touch it from time to
Yeah.
time. Okay, one more. Yep.
Several people at our table are concerned about growth. When a company is growing very quickly, how do you get people to understand Holacracy? And it sounds like you went through some of that. In practical terms, how did you get new people onboarded when you were growing very quickly?
Mm-hmm. Well, when you're growing very quickly, you have to onboard. No, regardless what you do, if you hire people, you have to onboard them. Yes. And in the beginning, you do an onboarding that this is Pete, he's new, join us at the table. And things get bigger, then you need a different process. And that, in our case, meant we would bring all new beginners to Barcelona in our, and do 2 days of onboarding with them. How we work, what tools we need to do, and stuff like that. And also, we included 4 hours of Holacracy training there. That was our onboarding. And there was clearly a gap before we had that onboarding and after we had established that onboarding.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think there's much more to dive in, for sure. But as you see, ClickShare already ended that phase of our day.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, Frank, for sharing your story and the story of Netcentric.
Thank you. Thank you.